with Barry.
Arlene Schofield.
My name is Shireen Snow.
My name is Carla A. Miles.
Diana Camuto.
This is Christine Dunford.
I'm Me Eden.
Caroline Macy. This is Walker Fannin.
Lydia Camille Dixon.
I'm Sarah Dates Wardam.
My name is Linda Preston, and you're watching the Keith Andrew Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 425. I am your host, Keith Andrew, along here with Russell Nohelty. I just want to say thank you for being a guest on my talk show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, for people who want to know what my talk show is about, the whole point of my talk show is to show people that even if having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities. But you should never give up, and you should prove people wrong. To show them labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be, and you should prove to them you can break the labels. So that being said, half hour every time. Say anything you want, talk about whatever you want, freedom of speech, self-expression. And starting off, what can you tell us about yourself?
So I'm a writer and publisher. I run a company called Wannabe Press, and I write both novels and graphic novels. So I've written and created 4 graphic novels up to this point. I've also edited an anthology called Monsters and Other Scary Shit, and I'm a novelist. I have 3 novels out right now. My Father Didn't Kill Himself, Spaceship Broken, and Gumshoes, The Case of Madison's Father. And currently I am writing at least 10 novels this year. So I can, my goal is to get up to 20 novels out by the end of next year.
Ah, nice. So with that being said, who influenced you to become a writer? And out of all the books you've written and wrote, what were some of your favorites?
So I would say probably as far as like writing influences, George Orwell is a big one, Chuck Palahniuk is a big one, Douglas Adams is a big one, and Kurt Vonnegut is a big one. As far as people in my life, my mother always told me that I should be a writer. I always told her I didn't want to be a writer. But eventually, she won out, and she was right. So I guess for my whole life, my mother and my father have been very supportive of my choices and my desire to basically do whatever I wanted to do. Which allowed me to, and my wife has allowed me to kind of be in the place that I am today. As far as books that I've written, probably my favorite one that I've written so far that's out is Spaceship Broken. It's actually a book you can get for free by signing up for a mailing list. But it's because it's very personal. It's about a boy with pulmonary fibrosis who meets a homeless alien and helps her rebuild her ship and get off the planet. It's also a lot about my grandfather, and I wrote it around when my grandfather's health was failing. And so it's a pretty personal story about a boy's relationship with his grandfather and how he can see that relationship much differently than everybody else does.
All right. What were some of your inspirations for writing your books? So, like, you mentioned you have a couple books behind you. What gave you the inspiration saying, this is what I want to do?
I started out, I wanted to be a movie and TV writer. And so a lot of my initial writing happened in 2008 after I got into a car accident, and I was I lost my job. I was in a neck brace for 5 months. And so, including during my wedding and my honeymoon. And so during that time, I originally was trying to direct. I had a bunch of gear I couldn't use anymore because I just physically couldn't lug them around everywhere that I needed to. So the one thing that I could do was write. So I started writing screenplays, all sorts of different kinds of screenplays. I'd heard somebody say once that your first 10 screenplays are going to suck. And so my goal was to write 10 screenplays as fast as humanly possible, so I can get all of the sucky stuff out of it. And, they weren't wrong. A lot of my first screenplays were quite bad. And then I moved to LA in 2008, and I tried to make it as a movie and TV writer, and that really didn't work very well. And my manager at the time asked me if I'd ever read comics. And I said, well, I used to read comics back when I was a kid, but I don't read comics now because I don't care about superheroes. So he handed me this stack, probably about this thick, of independent comic books, everything from Halloween to really weird indie stuff. And I read them and I loved them, and I came back and we talked about how much it would cost to make a comic book, and it's about 10 to 100 times less than making a movie. I actually had the money to finance making a comic book at the time, 2 comic books actually, so that's what I did. We started with this little one-shot called The Wannabes, and when that didn't work very well, I did Ichabod Jones' Monster Hunter, Katrina Hates the Dead, and Paradise for my next 3 books, and of those 2 actually finished. All 3 of those ones actually got up to 1 issue, so Paradise is 1 single issue. And then Ichabod Jones' Monster Hunter, Katrina Hates the Dead ended, had finished their run. And so that took us between 2010 2012 to put all of that stuff together. And then we had worked with some publishers, we had done all of this other stuff, and eventually I just decided to put it out on my own. We did Kickstarter. So when you think about inspiration, my inspirations are more movie and TV, where I first got started, because that's what I wanted to do. So I was really inspired back in the day by Robert Rodriguez and Kevin Smith and Quentin Tarantino, people that went and they did it, and they made something, and that something. Especially Kevin Smith, because Kevin Smith said, look, man, the worst case scenario is that this doesn't work out. I have $25,000 in credit card debt. I can pay that off for the rest of my life. And I started thinking, yeah, I can do that. I actually directed, wrote, and produced a movie called Connections, which is available on YouTube right now for free. So, most of my inspiration back then came from movies, which is weird when people ask me about my book inspirations, because while I've always loved writing books, I didn't actually think I would ever be a novelist. So most of my inspiration comes from movies and TV and people like Brian Fuller and people that were making weird stuff in a world of commercial commercial excess. They're making these small, weird things and still finding a way to survive.
All right. Well, for a perfect example, say, hypothetically, if I asked you if you would write a book or a comic book about me, 1, would you be interested in? 2, what type of ideas would you come up with?
Absolutely not. I don't write biographies. Those are not my thing. So I don't... and I also don't like true stories. So I like fantasy and sci-fi and things that are out there. So I don't do books about people unless someone would hire me to do that, and I would tell them, you probably shouldn't hire me to do that because I'm not good at making real life interesting. I'm good at making fantastical stuff believable.
All right. So for an example, the whole movie Jesus Christ Superstar. You couldn't make a comic book out of that.
I mean, Jesus Christ Superstar was partially based on truth, but they added a lot of extra stuff to that. So, but I'm not that would not interest me. I don't make things that don't interest me either. So, I like I said, fantastical worlds, science fiction, some mystery, So unless it has something fantastical, science fiction-y about it, or mystery, or or horror, also, like if it doesn't fall into one of those four categories, I have no interest in writing it. And really, I like combining all four of those things together. So my books, I like having a little bit of mystery, a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of fantasy, and a little bit of horror. So if it doesn't have those elements in it, I'm not interested. And I've built a career. A big part of my career is the ability to say no to a lot of stuff. So I say no to almost everything that crosses my desk because I want to write the thing that I want to write. And I know that if I write the thing that I want to write and it is true to my audience, then they are going to buy it. So unless somebody is going to pay me to write Jesus Christ Superstar, the comic book or the novel, I have no interest in doing anything like that. I'm interested in taking the things that are in my own head and putting them out into the world.
All right. What about next question I was going to ask you is social media. Can social media make you or break you? And based on your type of work and your industry, what you do, what is your opinion about it?
Sure. I mean, so I used to be much more into social media than I am now. I do think that it's important to be on at least 3 platforms of social media platforms, at least 1, up to 3. I don't think that it's important to be on every social media platform, but I do think it's important to dominate 1 social media platform. So even though I have almost 30,000 followers on Twitter, I have no idea how to use Twitter. I have horrible engagement on Twitter. Instagram I'm a little bit better at, but I've not really been doing things that are Instagrammable recently, so it's tough for me to get Instagram to go to Instagram. My platform of choice is Facebook, and mostly my personal Facebook page. I dominate my personal Facebook page. It's full of creators and authors and other people who I cross-promote with all of the time, who we back each other's projects, and we introduce each other to our audiences. So I do think that social media is important. I think a mailing list is much more important. If you have a mailing list, you can do anything, and you have a way to connect with your readers and your audience all of the time. So I have moved very quickly in the past about 4 months from focusing on the Twitter, Instagram, and Facebooks of the world to focusing on my mailing list. And in those 4 months, we increased our mailing list by 5 times. So while those things are important, what I did was I looked around at a lot of the people that I, not so much in media, but in just businesses that I respect, and found that most of them don't have a huge social media profile, but they're still able to make it work. They're able to make it work because they have this big, massive mailing list of engaged readers and people that want to know what people that want to interact with them. And so what I do is I set up a Facebook group for a book club Facebook group for my mailing list. I set up an author group for authors that I know, and I'm able to direct that mailing list to places online that I want them to go. And so I'm able to segment a 10,000 person list and get 100 people in a book club or 1,100 people in our Facebook group. But you can't really send people from Twitter to Facebook or Facebook to Instagram. It's a lot harder to do that, but it's easy if you have a mailing list and you can say, hey, are you guys interested in this book club? I know you're interested in my stuff. Are you interested in a book club? Come here. Are you interested in this thing? Go there. So I do think that, especially, I think that there was a time between 2008 and 2014 where social media was probably the best place to be, because the algorithms hadn't changed. You were able to reach your whole audience. You have to pay for all of this stuff. But since, especially 2016 and beyond, it's been harder and harder to reach your audience on social media, and that's making the mailing list be much, much, much more significant than it had been for the previous 6 years. and as significant as it had been before 2004, where you didn't have any social media really, besides like a Friendster or MySpace.
Well, you mentioned MySpace. I used to be obsessed with MySpace. That used to be my go-to site, but I really didn't care for the whole makeover they did to it. Instead of doing up and down, they went just scrolling, and that also is so slow. I can walk faster in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean that. So if you rely on social media, then you are relying on. You don't own those leads. You don't own that network. If they change something, then it could destroy you overnight. I can't tell you how many businesses have been lost because Facebook changed their algorithm or Google changed their algorithm. So many businesses literally lost 90% of their revenue overnight when Facebook changed their algorithm in 2016. So if you're not building your mailing list or building a way outside of social media for people to connect with you, then you are relying on those platforms. And if a platform ever does what MySpace did, or if a platform just goes under, like how many platforms just go under at some point, if that happens to you, then you're going to lose all of your ability to connect with that audience. But if you own the email address, then you can always connect with somebody, because people will never leave. For the most part, nobody's going to get rid of their email address, especially when they've had it for a long time.
No, I agree with you. Now we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, with the last 7 minutes left of the show, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Okay.
Me, Mark Medley.
Hi everybody, this is Mark Neely.
Barry Papick.
This is Peter Bruno.
My name is Kyle Collier. This is Julio Santiago, better known as Dynamite.
I'm Richard Epcar.
Orange Chow.
This is Kerrigan Mahan.
This is Goldner.
And we both support
Keith Andrew.
My name is Ron Wasserman, and I am supporting Keith Andrew and what he is doing, and you better do the same, or I'm gonna come kick your ass.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Keith Andrew Network. I am your host, Keith Andrew, along here with Russell. And with the last 8 minutes left of the show, I'm going to pass it over to you. Was there any subjects you wanted to talk about? Anything you wanted to promote? Did you want to promote those books behind you so our viewers can get an idea of what they are? This is your time after all. Whatever you want to ask me, you're more than welcome to.
Okay. This is not a bunch of books. It's just the three copies of our book that's coming out next month, hopefully next month. And it's called Pixie Dust. It's about a pixie monster hunter that gets betrayed, murdered, sells her soul to the queen of the underworld, who's back as a zombie to seek revenge on the people that killed her. It's 112 pages, hardcover. We funded it on Kickstarter last October. So it's a high quality printed on high quality art gloss paper, and it was written by me and created by me, and then drawn by Nicholas Torres, who draws Franklin and Ghost for Rats and Crows, Godlikes for what the name of that company? It just Insane Comics and a couple of others. This is not the only book we have. We also, if you go to our site, Wannabe Press, www.wannabepress.com, you'll see all of our books. We currently have 3 main books out: Katrina Hates Dead Shit, Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter, and Monsters and Other Scary Shit is our anthology. The Monsters book was funded earlier last year by Kickstarter in April to the tune of $27,000. And then Katrina and Ichabod have been out for about a year and a couple of months. All of this is also available on my Amazon store, my own personal Amazon store, and you can get PDFs and anything. But probably the best deal is if you go to our website, the Wannabe Press site, and you go to the shop section, you can get a set of 10 books plus 2 books that are exclusive to our website. For $10.
Yeah, good deal. Now, my last question for you is, have you ever been to Comic-Con, and do you think what you're doing would benefit from going to Comic-Con?
This will be our 4th year exhibiting at Comic-Con in a row this year. So we last year exhibited at 41 shows. Comic-Con was had our most revenue last year. The year before was the same thing. And then hopefully this year will be the same. This year we're only doing 10 shows, but Comic-Con is one of them. As much as I love Comic-Con, though, like there are so many good conventions all over the country that I think are equally good. Emerald City Comic-Con, Denver Comic-Con, Phoenix Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, C2E2, Awesome Con. These are all shows that are maybe don't have the celebrity pull, but they definitely have the fun factor. And if you're into comics, they definitely have a lot of comic people. And if you are a creator, I just launched a new website called The Complete Creative, which is about how to have the right mindset, create better stuff, and then sell it. And I have a site, and I have an article on that site. If you go to thecompletecreative.com/con sales, which talks all about 8 ways to improve your sales at a convention.
Yeah, that's really cool. Now, wrapping up our last segment, the last 2 questions I was going to ask you is, how can people follow you on social media? Are you on LinkedIn, Stage 32? Are you on those fun sites? And my last question for you is, when I approached you to be a guest on a talk show, what was your first reaction and what made you say yes?
All right, so I'm on LinkedIn. I don't know what the link is for that. I am on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Russell Nohelty. If you want to get a bunch of free books, you can get some free books at russellnohelty.com/mail, MAIL. That'll put you on our mailing list where you will get, it fluctuates somewhere between 2 and 8 free books depending on the week. As far as, you just messaged me and you asked if I wanted to be on a show, and I'm a press whore, so like I will basically do any show if somebody asks. So you asked, and I said yes. I wish there was a better story than that, but that's about the long and short of it.
No, I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to meeting you at Comic-Con, and looking forward to part 2 down the road. I just want to say thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.